Good morning, Jags. This is Fahad. Today is Thursday, July 16th. A bit of weakness in equity futures this morning, once again led by NASDAQ, which would be the fourth consecutive day of NASDAQ pulling back. So we'll see exactly how the day will go. It's pretty broad-based and it was pretty consistent throughout in the overnight session. So everything was looking down. So it's probably going to end up being a negative day, but we'll see how the day progresses. There's not much more to add to this. Um, hey, Avo, did you see this in today's first read? Just Citigroup is boosting price target on Tesla to $450 per share, while
All right.
while
Well, that's
maintaining.
good to know.
They
Is
went
this the
from They went from 246 to $450 per share while maintaining sell rating to reflect stronger second quarter deliveries. Oh my gosh.
well, all right. Well, at least they're getting partly with the times, I guess. They're halfway there. Or no, they're a third of the way there in the price target. No, I didn't see that, but I was reading the RBC note on Shopify, if anybody was wondering what I was doing earlier.
Yeah, there's other notes in Shopify on the first read too. I just got a nice chuckle out of this when I saw this. Good one, Chronicle, a piece of humor essentially in today's first read. Another one that caught my attention in the today's first read was Domino's Pizza's earnings report that's out this morning. So while everything is gapping down sharply, DPZ is going to open flat to slightly higher. If you look at pre-market price action, it's not a huge move, but considering that everything is down, this thing is looking to, there was a little bit of a bid earlier of above $414 per share, which is above the closing price yesterday. So I think it's going to have flat to slightly higher open on rather very, very good earnings. And this is to be expected. We have been talking about this for quite some time. So let's see if market does cooperate and it stabilizes from a rather negative opening across everywhere. If we're going to see Domino's Pizza push higher even further. But the most important thing in this one was look at the earnings per share beat, a huge one, $2.99 versus 224. And the second one, the most important of all, is domestic comps were so strong, up 16.1% versus 11.9% estimate. Once again, should not be a surprise to anybody. I guess the street was still low. That would be a surprise. But we have been talking about this with our clients that these channel checks were coming out ridiculously strong. So we're going to get that. Let's see if also Papa John's also pushes higher on the back of this. Both of these stocks have been nicely breaking out. Papa John's hit another new 52-week high yesterday, closing at 93.06. I expect still more upside in both of these names as I've been highlighting. And then two stocks quickly just touching, not much more fundamental color here, but we will get back to them with more details as the time comes. But first, solar. And I've been watching the entire solar space recently. So, for example, one of our previously favorite names for which I made a video for Real Vision last year, as many of you remember, it's also right on the homepage, Sunrun. I mean, this thing has gone completely nuts recently, going from $20 to $35 per share. I don't know if anybody is still positioned into that one, but this is driven by the merger that the company announced with Vivint Solar recently that has a lot of analysts excited. But taking a look at First Solar, in which I'm starting to see some upside call option activity pick up, and this thing for the last couple of days has been powering higher on rather very, very heavy volume. If you look at First Solar, last 2 weeks, very high volume and large, thick green shoots repeatedly. On a weekly scale, First Solar is actually just attacking this resistance and is trying to break out. That's what catches my attention and is doing so on very heavy volume. So whenever something starts to attack major resistance level on heavy volume, As I say all the time, if you're going to keep knocking the door with a hammer, you're going to break the door eventually. So I expect First Solar to eventually break out and post more higher gains down the road. Now, there's a lot of things to like about this particular space. Solar space, there was this solar mandate that went into effect in California starting from January of this year, which is helping the space. And now with the housing market overall performing better than the rest of the country, actually the housing than the rest of the economy, I should say, the housing market, the housing demand doing better as mainly because of function of people moving out of the urban areas and looking for a spot in the suburban area, the whole theme that we have discussed multiple times. So, and at the time when the inventory levels in the suburbs is actually rather pretty low, this is also helping the solar space. And then more importantly, at some point, we're going to start talking about the simple fact that elections are coming up, November elections, and Biden has a double-digit lead over Donald Trump. Now, Biden just yesterday proposed a $2 trillion pledge for clean energy infrastructure, which would be the highest on record of any kind of infrastructure package ever produced or pledged by the federal government. $2 trillion basically is proposing to go 100% carbon-free, clean electricity by 2035. So think about this, how major undertaking that would be. So California is already ahead of everybody else because they have already some, solar mandate for housing complex in play. But if Biden really wins the election in November and we have this $2 trillion package coming for clean energy infrastructure to take the entire country carbon-free clean electricity by 2035, the street estimates that if that happens, we are looking at 1,600 gigawatt of new solar and wind capacity to be supported by this package. Also, the storage devices that people will have to install in their homes will also take off. Tesla produce lots of those batteries for storage purposes, and this would be a potential 7 times increase in the annual deployment from the current levels, just if we start to scratch the surface of what kind of proposal the Democrats may actually propose. And so this is a major potential tailwind. And as long as Biden maintains its double-digit lead going into the elections, which is only 4 months away now, there's a good chance that these solar stocks will continue to power higher on expectations of that. So it's not just First Solar, although First Solar is the best of breed in my opinion. It's also Sunrun, which has run huge now, way overbought here, technically speaking, so difficult to chase. But it's also SPWR, which is Sun Power, that has also started to emerge after a long basing formation. So I think this thing goes higher as well, and I'm sure there's going to be other names. So just wanted to touch upon this. We have to start thinking about how some of these stocks will benefit from November elections. It's only 4 months away. That's it from me, Chronicle.
Morning, everyone. More strong checks from the home building segment late yesterday. Redfin said that home sales have surpassed pre-pandemic levels the week ending July 5th. The report mentions demand is being propelled primarily by record low mortgage rates, with the average 30-year fixed rate down to 3.03% for the week ending July 9th. And the other thing, as I've always said, is that inventory levels remain too low, especially in affordable housing in the suburbs. So supply still needs to keep up with demand. So this is another good read, and we always had the mortgage applications accelerating as well to 5.1% this week versus a 2.2% increase in the last. We also have the NAHB Housing Market Index reading for July coming up later today, and I'm expecting another sequential improvement. And tomorrow we're getting the latest building permits number, which is what I'm most looking forward to. You know, building permits cost about $1,000 each on average in the US. So when these home builders are all securing tens of thousands of permits, they're not doing it half-heartedly, and chances are they've already secured loans before getting those permits. So permits are a very accurate leading indicator. Overall, nothing's really changed in my bullish view on home building. And I continue to like Louisiana Pacific and affordable housing developers like D.R. Horton. If you pull up the chart of D.R. Horton and Toll Brothers, you can see that affordable housing is outperforming more higher end housing. And I think any pullbacks in DHI or LPX would be opportunities to increase the size of those long positions.
Yeah, this is the chart that you shared with me earlier this morning. So this is the trend that has emerged for the 30-year fixed mortgage rate. Naturally, this is a major tailwind for housing market. And you know what would support this kind of growth in the housing market even more if the unemployment report continues to show signs of improvement, which would require economy reopening gradually. But if that happens on top of this, then this is a huge tailwind for the housing market. 3.03% for a 30-year mortgage rate now, just incredible. All-time lows in the U.S. history. On the DHI chart, DR Horton, fantastic technical breakout yesterday from a tight bull flag, is starting to clear all of this 2-month-long consolidation pattern. And you're right, purely technically speaking, that downside will remain very, very limited in some of these names because of the fundamental view, but also technically looking at them, DHI, this is major VOP support levels now around 55. So I don't expect stock to give up on those levels at all, given the kind of macro environment that we have in front of us. DHI also has another analyst upgrading, or sorry, Goldman Sachs is raising the price target this morning as well from $62 to $66 per share. And as far as Louisiana Pacific is concerned, people can go and take a look at the bullish view that was presented in the third quarter outlook. And this chart, we have been pointing out, there were a couple of questions that was asked in the chat room that are positioned in call options, and I recommended continue to hold or roll those call options to a higher strike because I still don't think it's done going up. Considering what lumber has been doing, here is lumber pricing, new 52-week high in lumber length future. And that's all you need to know to basically make a bullish case for LPX. It's more upside to head. I think it goes to $32 per share. Great stuff. Jay. Jay not here. Avo, you go next.
All right. What do I got this morning? A bit of a not a bit. Okay, it's a speculative play on a name that has seen a lot of weakness based on many things. Goodyear Tire, GT is the ticker.
Yeah.
And what I see, there's a
They were
JP Morgan had.
Sorry, quickly. They were buying. I noticed yesterday January 15 calls and GT yesterday.
Yeah, I
don't know
didn't
if
see
you
those
spotted.
going into open interest, but it did spark my my reason to take a look into the stock. I
Yeah.
think there could be upside here on a couple of factors. First of all, JP Morgan had a note out yesterday, monthly tire review for the month of June, showing significant improvement over May. I mean, this isn't going from February levels going higher. This is because of the drop that we saw in March, April. So whereas May was down 48% year over year, June is now down 15% year over year, and in April it was down 57%. So
Yeah.
it had fallen. Tire shipments had fallen significantly. Obviously, I mean the factories were closed and all that. So this is the improvement is not just the OEM shipments, but also replacement tires. And they said that their trend is continuing in June, which is good. And we have seen also increasing miles driven data, which the more miles you drive, obviously the more tires eventually they get changed. And the raw cost material pricing has gone down slightly, 1%. It's not a huge deal, but it also helps. And I mean, if I were to apply the logic of increased used car buying, a lot of this used cars that they sell, I imagine for legal reasons, if the tires are worn past a certain amount, the dealership will change it. Whereas if you buy a secondhand car from a private individual, he'll say, well, look, you're going to need the tires changed. But a dealership can't do that. You'll need to put a new pair of tires on that, or 2 pairs at least. And there's another thing that at the end of June, Goodyear announced a strategic relationship for tires and service with Lordstown Motors. Now, Lordstown is that electric pickup company that bought that GM plant back, I think it was last November or last year sometime. And they will be building a pickup to compete with the Cybertruck. They don't look the same, but it's an EV, electric vehicle. This delivery for this pickup truck was supposed to be this winter, but that got pushed back to April, and I think it's getting pushed back to late 2021. In any case, so this makes it a further out play, which, I mean, had those, that's what I figured maybe this call buying that we both saw yesterday was targeting, although like I said, it didn't go into open interest. So further out play, I think that, I mean, technically it was way oversold, and there could still be a technical bounce up to $12, $13 range.
This is a very good technical picture, and I agree. I think $12 would be my first target. I think it goes there with ease, with minor pullbacks. So you're still talking to go from 10 to 12. You're talking 20% to the upside,
Exactly.
which is pretty good. There has been some accumulation for the last couple of weeks actually in leap call options. So there's definitely positioning into this. MACD RSI looked fantastic here and was a pretty high volume push higher into the stock yesterday. So momentum is definitely building behind it. Also, it's a play on factor rotation from growth to value. And there's just to put a general thought around this entire thing. So here we're discussing GT. Yesterday, you presented this beautiful article on homepage, Group 1 Automotive, which sort of plays into the same theme where we are seeing improving trends, Manheim Index, auction sales, and all of that. So also yesterday, I produced a podcast on Rider System, which is also automotive sector. So you can pull my Spotify, Jaguar Java podcast and listen to that podcast over there. And then 2 days ago, we bought call option buying in General Motors as well as Ford Motors. So there's definitely overall strength that has emerged in the auto space in the last couple of days, particularly this week. I tend to believe that fair large amount of that kind of strength is really a function of the factor rotation from growth to value, but there's definitely also some fundamental improvements sequentially, at least, that's in front of us to watch.
Agreed.
So,
And I didn't, I just realized this morning that I should have also checked Cooper Tire to see if there was any options activity there. It's too late for me to do that now, but
yeah,
I should have. So that's another company that
you can bring Cooper tires tomorrow. This entire space needs to be monitored very closely. Great stuff, Favo. Jay.
Yeah. Hey, Fad, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right. Sounds good. So 2 stocks. I'll be publishing a homepage write-up later this morning on Monolithic Power Systems, MPWR.
Yeah.
As you noted, there was some small but unusual buying in the August 260 calls yesterday. So I will have a write-up later today. So be on the lookout for that.
Excellent.
And then the second note is on some of the beverage can makers, specifically Ball Corp, BLL, and Crown Castle, CCK, or Crown Holdings, CCK. So yesterday, and this was actually posted in First Read, these stocks sold off after CanPack, which is an international can producer. They announced that they are going to be entering the U.S. By investing $366 million to build a new beverage can facility in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, this won't happen until well over a year from now in Q4 of 2021. B of A is out with a note this morning. First, just talking about the industry in general. The North American market, the bev can market, grew 8% in Q1. They still see that continuing to grow 4 to 5% long term. Now, both companies, BLL and CCK, of course, would prefer to have the market to themselves, but they have stated in the past that they expected new supply, new entrants to come into North America. So it's not surprising. B of A would be buyers, on this pullback. They note that in the past, CanPack and any startup that they have, ventured out in, they've had some growing pains. And then Barclays is also out, basically expecting this narrative to play out just like what happened in December when the Caribbean Distillers announced a new beverage plant in the state of Florida. So basically, those stocks saw a pullback back in December, but then over the next 2 months, you saw BLL grow 23%, CCK go up 7%. And they ultimately see yesterday's announcement providing a similar setup.
Good. Interesting stuff. Contrarian view there by an analyst that has followed this industry for very closely for quite some time. Um, on tech purely, as I always like to just layer my technical views on this. So taking a look at BLL, very large bearish engulfing candle on very, very heavy volume. Now, fundamentally, the news may not have a material impact, and ultimately it will probably turn out to be a buying opportunity. But from a technical standpoint, when I look at BLL, $65 level is where I would step in. It closed at 69 yesterday. With the market weakness today that we're seeing in pre-market, I think we may have a couple more dollars of just flushing out of the sentiment here before this becomes a buy, with a hard stop at 65. And on CCK, similarly, very important VOP support is coming in around 63. It closed at 67 yesterday. So a couple more dollars and then becomes an interesting buy at that point. And I'm looking forward to your article on MPWR. Should be a nice one. So we'll submit that and we'll issue that to all clients when it's available. Thanks, guys. Great stuff as usual. We'll see you in the chat room shortly.